So we are now ready for arguably the hardest part of the installation. That would be installing the hands. We're going to start with the hour hand. New is our Casker toolkit, and if you have that toolkit, then you will have one of these guided sort of hand presses that I have turned on its side right here just to show it to you because in its entirety, because I'm going to be turning it over when we actually go to setting the hands. If you have our older toolkit, you might have this stick style hand press. If this is what you're using to install the hands, I would go over to the Series DECO training, or sorry, this is the Series DECO training. Go over to the Series 1 training, and I show you how to use one of these stick style hand presses. These work. They make the hand installation a little bit harder, and this tool makes it a lot easier. So I'm going to show you with this tool, since I've never shown an operation like this with one of these types of tools. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it right side up. What you'll want to do for this part is get your dial and movement on a movement holder. Now this is the typical type of movement holder that you would have in your kit. I am going to use a Bergeon 11.5 lean movement holder. This movement holder is available at Casker. You want the 11.5 lean version, but it doesn't come cheap. It is a solid $50. Now I invested in this because it makes the work a heck of a lot easier when you're dealing with a specific movement size, and an 11.5 lean movement is a pretty typical movement size at a 2824, the Miota 8215, this 8N33 we're working with is all 11.5 leans. So it fits snugly and lays perfectly flat on top of that movement holder. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that there. And then with our hand press, since we're doing the hour hand, which is the largest of the three hands, I'm going to find the hand press tip with the largest opening of the hole. And you're going to have some on the press that have no hole. That's for setting the second hand. And smaller holes, that's for setting the minute hand or smaller hands. But we want the largest one for this operation. And I'm going to install that right into the tip of my hand press and get ready to go. Now before I actually start working on this, I want to give you a quick drawing of how this is going to go. Any of you into fountain pens? I am, and I love them. So if you figure this is the dial laying flat, you've got the movement holder below, and here's your dial. You've got the posts for the hand protruding up from the dial. The largest post and the one closest to the surface of the dial is the hour hand. I've noticed that these fountain pens don't give me better handwriting. Then you've got a second post. That's minute. And there's a very needle-like tip. That is the sweep second. So what you're doing is you're putting the hour hand on, the minute hand on, and the sweep second hand on, and they attach to these various three posts, or pinions as they are called. When they are finally installed, the purpose is to get the hands perpendicular. So if you have your hour hand, it should be perpendicular to the plane of the dial. Same with the minute hand. and then the sweep second hand. You don't want to have an installation where the hands are not in a perpendicular plane to the dial. That is the single biggest failure of a project, of a build. If the hands are touching or rubbing in any way, that'll stop the movement. I mean, even the slightest touch. So as you're doing this, this is the part of the build that I would spend the most amount of time, be the most careful, keep an eye on what you're doing, and after you install each hand, take a very careful look at the dial from the side or from this angle. Look at it like this with your optics on to be sure that those hands are on perpendicular to the dial, they're not rubbing against the surface of the dial, and they are not rubbing against each other. In which case, if they are, you're going to have to get your Presto hand puller out and pull the hand off. And I also have a video on the Series 1 for removing a hand with this Presto tool, which really just involves getting the hand under these tips and pulling up, and it pulls the hand right off the dial, and you would have a dial protector on while you're doing that. I'm going to put a dial protector on when I install my minute and sweep second hand, and you'll see that in the minute. But for the hour hand, I feel it's the easiest part of the installation. You can put on a dial protector while you're doing the hand installation, like so, if you are nervous about touching the surface of the dial during the install. You can also take a piece of sticky notes, which are very useful in the build potentially. I'm gonna grab a scissors. Cut a very fine slit in your sticky note. I wouldn't get the sticky part on the dial, and put it down like so to protect your dial during hand installation. So that is one other way to do it. So get this mess out of the way, and we will begin. You're going to want your brass tweezers. Obviously, you're going to want your optical visor on of some type so that you can see what you're doing. You want to set up the movement dial on the press. I'm going to do this, I'm going to try to do this so you can see what I am doing. What I do first is line up a little bit of dust. Do have a blower included in your kit. I'm just going to blow off some dust. You want to line up the pinions so that this press fits right over them, and you're not hitting the sweep second hand post, because that would be very easy to bend. You're going to use your brass tweezers. You're going to pick up your hour hand and you're going to put it in place. Now for the hour hand, you have the benefit of, once you put it on, to turning it into position for setting up, putting on the minute hand. So at this point it doesn't really matter which direction the hour hand is facing, because you can fully rotate it with the crown. Now there is a wrong way and a right way to put on these hands. You will notice one side looks a lot better than the other. That's because these spear hands, and same with the thermally blued hands. There's an upside down way and a right side up way to put on the hand. I'm having a hard time picking this guy up. I'm just going to grab it, turn it over. There's a dimple or a crease. That's right side up. And the other way has a crease. And the hand looks more rough from the other direction. With optics on, it'll be obvious to you which side's the side that should be facing the crystal and which side should be facing the dial. So you will just pick up your hand, put it right in position. Now what I do is I try to get it set up on the hour wheel post. And you can do it with your tweezers. You don't want to press down when it's resting there uneven. I've got it rested there. Pretty even now. And the great thing about this type of press is it is your guide. I'm pressing with a fair amount of force. Now I'm going to check. Looks pretty good. I've got my hand on. That was pretty quick and easy. Now you're going to spend a fair amount of time looking at the watch from this angle. See how you can see, and it's kind of hard to pick up in the picture, there's air between the hand and the dial, and it is level to the dial. Those are pretty good installation. I can pull my crown out into the winding position, and our hour hand is turning. And you want to make sure that it has clearance around the entire surface of the dial. And I'm pretty happy with that install. So it's that easy. And we have installed our hour hand. Now in the process of all this picking it up and grabbing it, invariably when you're working with the hand and your tweezers, it's going to go all over the place. You might get a mark on it or pick up a piece of dust or lint. I have found, and ladies, if you're out there, I have no idea what these swabs are exactly. I found them at just a local grocery, but rather than it being a normal Q-tip or ear swab, it's kind of pointed and the fibers don't come off as easily. And this is a great tool to just go and wipe any marks or anything you see underhand. And that is it. We've got the hour hand on.